And we have right here section 20, which talks about what are the requirements for us to entrust a person in the jail. So, no person shall be committed to any jail facility without the following required documents. So, we have five. Of course, the important thing is a commitment order. So, it's a warrant issued by the judge or any competent authority. And we have here the medical certificate, and that medical certificate must be taken within 24 hours prior to admission, and complaint and information sheet must be brought as well. Police booking sheet and a certificate of detention from PNP and or NBI. And we have here the rule number 3, reception and releasing procedures, classification board, disciplinary board, and punishable acts of inmate. So, Section 21 talks about the reception procedures, and a decent and humane program of confinement starts with a systemic reception of inmates for commitment to the BJMP's jail facilities. And the following procedures should therefore be observed. So, this is according to the BJMP manual, and the first one is the gator. The gator's job is to check the credentials of the person bringing the inmate, which is the committing or admitting officer. So the credentials that we are talking about are those five, the section 20 documents. So the commitment order, med cert, complaint information, police booking sheet, and certificate of detention. So aside from checking the credentials, the gator must also review the completeness of those documents. Second one would be the records unit. So they shall, or this unit should examine the completeness and authenticity. So the records unit must check if a document is original. So he or she will check the commitment order, the booking sheet, arrest report, and information before it refers the inmate for physical examination by the health unit. So after the documents are verified by the records unit, here comes the health unit. So this is the unit that checks the originality or authenticity of the entries in a medical certificate. And after it has been verified, then health unit will conduct thorough physical examination of the inmate to determine his or her true physical condition. So the health unit would ask searching questions to determine injury or injuries found to have been sustained by the inmate after the conduct of medical examination, or those injuries not diagnosed prior to commitment in jail. So if the health unit found no discrepancy, then the inmate shall be referred back to the records unit. So the records unit, this is the time that they would receive the inmate and the documents from the committing officer, and then the record unit will proceed with the booking procedure. So the records unit will help when it comes to the accomplishment of the jail booking sheet. They would strip search the inmate to check for any birthmarks, tattoos. They would also encode the inmate's information to the NIMS system. They would fingerprint and photograph the inmate with mugshot background and list the names of the visitors authorized by the inmate. And also the records unit would apprise the inmate in a dialect that he or she understands of the provisions of Article 29 of the RPC, which was further amended by RA 10592. And they would facilitate the signing of a detainee's manifestation if he or she agrees to abide by the same disciplinary rules imposed upon convicted inmates. And the records unit must store all documents in the inmate's carpeta. And we have the property custodian. So the property custodian shall check the inmate's belongings for presence of contraband. So we have two kinds of contraband. It could be illegal or nuisance contraband. So illegal contraband, those that are unlawful in themselves, not because of some extraneous circumstances. So example would be dangerous drugs, potential weapons, explosives. And when we say nuisance contraband, are those that may not be classified as illegal under Philippine laws but are forbidden by jail rules. Example, cell phones, jewelries, appliances, gadgets. And the property custodian must also take all cash and other personal properties from inmates, list them down on a receipt form with duplicate, and the inmate shall keep all cash and other valuables of the inmate in a safety vault. Instead, cash and valuables may be turned over to any person authorized by the inmate. And they shall also refer the inmate to the desk officer after they have checked the inmate's belongings. And we have right here the desk officer. It books the newly committed inmate in the jail blotter, and he or she assigns the inmates to a reception area, if any, where he or she shall be scheduled for orientation and jail rules and regulation, and shall undergo risk assessment, classification, evaluation, and conduct a further medical evaluation screening by the medical officer. And we have the assistant warden or officer of the day. He or she shall orient the newly committed inmates on jail rules and regulations using the inmate's orientation sheet. And we have the jail warden. He or she will coordinate with concerned agencies regarding the case of inmate for the purpose of speedy disposition and to furnish them with copies of the available needed documents. So we have right here 16 agencies and persons that the jail warden shall coordinate with. So we have the section 22, which talks about the classification board. Each jail shall maintain a classification board if facilities and personnel are available to be composed of the following. So the head, who is a chairperson, and that is the assistant warden. And the members are chief, custodial security office, medical officer, jail chaplain, inmates WDO. And the classification board is tasked for the investigation of the inmate. So the classification board is tasked to assign the inmate's degree of security control, what would be the proper rehabilitation programs. And here are the duties and functions of the classification board. It's to conduct background investigation of inmates to determine the cell assignment, the appropriate rehabilitative program, and the type of supervision and degree of custody and restrictions applicable to the inmate. So the inmate is really required to appear before the classification board for validation of his or her profile. And the investigation shall focus on the following: the facts and data of the present case, the inmate's recent criminal history, and the facts about the inmate's attitudes and behavior while confined in other institutions, if the inmate is a recidivist or a habitual delinquent, the biography or life imprisonment, medical history, vocational, recreational, educational, and religious background, interest, and psychological characteristics as evaluated by the psychiatrist and psychologist. And we have here the section 24, the classification process. So we have here the admission of inmate. So once the inmate has undergone the registration process, he or she will be temporarily housed at the ICU, the Inmate Classification and Counseling Unit. So the inmate shall stay there for a minimum period of 30 days, but not exceeding 60 days, or until the completion of the classification process. At the ICU, the newly committed inmate will undergo assessment by different health professionals. So the inmate shall undergo physical, medical, dental, risk assessment, social case study, and so on. So we have here one of the examination that the newly admitted inmate will go through is the medical examination that will be conducted by the jail medical officer or the health unit. So they will note down significant bodily marks, scars, tattoos, and lesions based on the med-cert presented by the committing officer, and results of a medical examination shall be recorded, and it shall bear the signature of the physician. And also another examination that will be done in the ECU would be the dental examination that will be conducted by the jail dentist. So he or she shall perform a thorough dental examination and recording of his or her findings. So if there are any dental issues, that needs immediate attention right away. And we have here psychological examination. So the jail psychologist in charge shall conduct psychological examination to determine the psychological state at the time of the examination, and results will be recorded in the psychologist's logbook. And we have here the social case study. that is done by the jail social worker at the ICU, and he or she shall conduct in-depth interview. So that interview considers the inmate's background from birth up until the present. So that includes familial, educational, social, vocational, and other issues that has an impact on his or her personality. We have right here the risk assessment. A risk assessment tool shall be utilized to determine the level of violence risk the inmate poses, either external or internal. So, this will help in the proper classification and segregation of inmates and in the design of specific development plans. We have psychiatric evaluation. So, using the results of a psychological examination, social case study, risk assessment, the psychiatrist conducts a psychiatric evaluation to determine the presence of mental state, what's the mental cognition of the inmate, and to diagnose if there is any mental illness or problem that requires further treatment. So we have here the inmate evaluation and classification. It classified based on the level of risk and present physical, mental, and emotional state of the inmate. We have the proper cell assignment and development plans. So assigned to the cell that is deemed best for his or her growth and well-being. So the inmate would be assigned to what is the proper jail or proper cell assignment that would help him um rehabilitate. And the newly committed inmate is encouraged to participate in the recommended development program. And also, we have the case manager who will conduct the monitoring, and he will periodically do that, which would help in changing and enhancing the inmate's development programs depending on his or her behavioral progress. So, the Section 25 talks about the disciplinary board. So, a disciplinary board shall be organized and maintained for the purpose of hearing disciplinary cases involving an inmate who violates jail rules regulations. So, they consist still of the classification board with the addition of the inmate's representative. So, the disciplinary board, of course, they would investigate the facts of the alleged misconduct committed by the inmate, and they shall act upon, or it shall be heard, all cases shall be heard and decided within 48 hours from the date of receipt of the case. And we have here the section 27, which talks about the authorized disciplinary actions. What are those allowed punishment only if the inmate would violate the jail rules regulations? So for detainees, the allowed punishment should be admonition or verbal reprimand. We have here restitution or reparation, temporary or permanent cancellation of all or some recreational privileges, a reduction of visiting time, close confinement. So it's like a disciplinary cell as long as it would not exceed 7 days. And the last one would be transferred to another BJMP jail. Then for prisoners, so admonition or verbal reprimand or verbal warning, restitution or reparation, additional job functions or community service, and reduction of visiting time, close confinement, transfer to another BGMP jail, suspension of visiting privileges for a period of not exceeding 1 month, and permanent cancellation of visiting privileges with respect to persons not included in the definition of the immediate family under RA 7438. And also, we have some limitations on disciplinary punishment for inmates. No female inmate shall be subjected to any disciplinary punishment that would affect her unborn or nursing child. No infirm or handicapped offender as well. And we have here section 30, which talks about the punishable acts. And inmate is strictly prohibited from committing any of the following. These are considered minor offenses. So you can try to check on the BJMP manual for those minor offenses. So those are selling or bartering fellow inmates those items not classified as contraband, rendering personal service to fellow inmates, untidy or dirty personal appearance, littering or failing to maintain cleanliness, making frivolous, like playful, groundless complaints, taking the cudgels for reporting the complaints, taking the hits, cudgels are hits, reporting late for inmate formation and inmate head count without justifiable reason, willful waste of food. And we have right here less grave offenses. You can also try to take a look on this on the BJMP manual. Failure to report for work, failure to render assistance, failure to assist, behaving improperly, swearing, cursing, malingering, or pretending to be sick, to skip work assignments, spreading rumors or malicious intrigues, failure to stand at attention and give due respect when confronted by or reporting to any BJMP personnel. Um, Another, forcing fellow inmates to render personal service, that's grave. Exchanging uniforms, loitering, using telephone without authority from the desk officer, writing the face or drawing on walls, withholding information, possession of lewd or pornographic literature or photographs, absence from cell brigade during head count or at any time without justifiable reason, failure to turn over and implement articles issued after work details. So those are classified as less grave offenses. And for grave offenses, you can try to take a look at it on the BJMP manual. So let's have a review of the discussion that we've had. So with this, let us know the difference between BJMP and Bucor. So they're under BJMP is under the Department of DILG. The law that creates it is RA 6975. And we have the amending law, which is the RA 9263, the BFP, and BJMP Professionalization Act of 2004, and the BJMP Manage and Control Jail. So let's proceed with Bucor. It is under the Department of Justice, and it is created by Law Act 1907. And the amended law is RA 10575, the Bucor Act of 2013, and it managed prison. Okay, so let's try to answer this table. So let's try to check this inmate ratio to BJMP officer. For custodial routine, 1:7. So 1 BJMP officer is to 7 inmate. So that is the custodial routine in a cellar compound. For courtroom ratio, that is 1:2. And for transit ratio, that is 1:1 plus 1. And for inmate capacity, that is 1:4.7 square meter. And the distance of guard when escorting an inmate, that is 10 paces. And for rehabilitation program, let us try to check the ratio. For livelihood, 1 BJMP officer is to 180 inmate. For education, 1:120. Sports and recreation, 1:225. For behavior, 1:150. Religious is to 1:240. And for medical or health concern, 1:80. And let us try to check this table for BJMP key positions and organization. So for the position of Chief BJMP, its rank should be Jail Director, appointed by the President of the Philippines, recommended by DILG Secretary, of course. He shall be the first officer in command. And the required rank for a BJMP officer to qualify as Chief BJMP is Senior Soup. So Chief BJMP, Deputy Chief for Admin, Operation, and Directorial Staff. The required rank to qualify for this position is Senior Superintendent. For Deputy Chief for Admin, the rank is Jail Chief Soup, appointed by the President, recommended by DILG Secretary, and he is the second officer in command. For Deputy Chief for Operation, the rank is Jail Chief Soup, appointed by the President of the Philippines, recommended by DILG Secretary, and he shall be the third officer in command. The Deputy Chief for Directorial Staff, its rank is Jail Chief Soup, appointed by the President, recommended by the DILG Secretary, and the fourth officer in command. So for Regional Director, the required rank to qualify for the following positions of RD, Provincial Administrator, District Warden, City Warden, Municipal Warden, or the following. So for RD, Senior Soup is the minimum rank for you to qualify for the position. So the appointment depends on the current rank. So if the rank of the Regional Director senior soup, so he will be appointed by the DILG secretary. So we just have to refer back to the section 5 of RA 9263 and provincial admin. So required rank is jail chief soup. For district warden, jail soup. Sorry, for provincial administrator, jail soup, jail superintendent, and for district warden, jail superintendent. And for city warden, jail chief inspector, and for municipal warden, jail senior inspector. And for JO1 to senior jail officer 1, so if it is not on the national headquarters, they are appointed by the regional director. And there are just 4 appointing authorities. So we can find this on section 5 of RA 9263. So the President of the Philippines are the appointing authorities of the following ranks: Jail Director and Jail Chief Superintendent for DILG. It's Senior Superintendent. And for Chief BJMP, so he is the appointing authority for the ranks of inspector, senior inspector, chief inspector, superintendent, and for jail officer 1 to senior jail officer 4 in the national headquarters. And for regional director, he is the appointing authority for JO1 to SJO4. And let's proceed with the categories of inmates. So we have 3 classifications for detainee: those undergoing investigation, awaiting or undergoing trial, and those awaiting final judgment. And for prisoner, so when I say, let's go back to detainee, their case is still pending. Whereas for prisoner, they are already adjudged as guilty by the court. So there are 4 classifications: insular, provincial, city, and municipal. So let's proceed with the categories of prisoner. So we have here the insular. Its prison term is 3 years and 1 day to reclusion perpetua to life imprisonment. So the agency that will handle the insular prisoner would be Bucor. For provincial, the prison term is 6 months and 1 day to 3 years. Of course, that will be handled by BJMP. And for city, the prison term is 1 day to 3 years. That is handled by BJMP. And for municipal, that will be handled by BJMP. So the prison term of municipal, 1 day to 6 months. And we have right here the Section 19 Inmate Security Classification. So high profile, these are inmates that are controversial. So they are involved in sensationalized crime. High risk, these are inmates that are dangerous. They require greater degree of security. High value targets high value target are inmates that possess critical intelligence data and authority. Security threat group, these are any formal or informal inmates ongoing groups, gangs with 3 or more members. We have violent extremist offender. So they are offenders with extreme ideals and aspirations. We have terrorist group. They're involved in piracy and mutiny, rebellion, insurrection, coup d'etat. We have medium risk. So these are inmates that possess moderate risk to the public, and ordinary or minimum risk inmates have lesser tendencies to commit offense. So we have here the reception procedure. So the gator, he is assigned to check and review the credentials brought by the committing or admitting officer. Next is the records unit, who will examine the authenticity of the documents brought by the committing officer, and he also receives the inmate. We have the health unit that will check the med certificate, if it is authentic or not, and he will conduct physical examination after. And we have the property custodian, who will check the inmate's belongings for any contraband. He will take all cash and other things, then issue a receipt. We have a desk officer who would help book the inmate, and we have the assistant warden who will orient the new inmate. It's the job of the assistant warden or the officer of the day to orient the inmate about the jail rules and regulation. And we have the jail warden who will coordinate with other agencies regarding the speedy disposition of the inmate's case.